Hiya, Whisper here. I'm just gonna talk over some of the dungeons. We did get footage from 2 dungeons last weekend and 2 dungeons this weekend. So I'm gonna split them up into videos. This first one is going to be the Priory of Flame, I believe is what it's called. Priory of the Sacred Flame. That is the one. So I took footage. We went in here with a group of writers from Wowhead to mostly take pictures for, you know, guides and stuff. So I went in here with Katsuki, Word Up, Ellipsis, and June, Mistweaver, Enhancement Shaman, Shadow Priest Writer, and one of the staff. Wonderful people. If you know them, shout out. Big love. I'm just going to go through this dungeon real quick and give my sort of thoughts. This is mostly just B-roll in the background. If you guys want, I can also upload the whole thing. But again, I didn't go in with the intention of, you know, giving a dungeon showcase. Mostly just talking, background footage if you want to see that. Going over my thoughts of how the spec plays, fate-bound, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm just gonna 2x this and kind of move through it. Gonna seek through it a little bit. But as you saw, those mobs on the side, they were yellow mobs. Very easy to solo. Bosses, 3 bosses in this dungeon. This was a pretty quick one, and it reminded me a lot of the start of Streets. Tazavesh Streets, as you come through this first gateway. Now this was before the class changes, but we did have fate bound, so you see coins flipping. So here I have, you know, 4 heads, 5 heads here, and a tails. So that's all stacking. In general, I don't think Fatebound was really all that impactful. It definitely needs an animation on like the tails proc, the cosmic damage, because it really didn't feel all that great. The coins flipping were pretty cool, but it did feel very muted. It didn't really have a good response. I'm sure the damage is fine, and it being passive and not something to play that much around is also okay. But in general, it didn't really have any impact. But here, like, you know, I flipped 9 heads in a row, and I looked at the buff and all that, and I was like, oh geez, 9. But unless you have like a weak aura or something to specifically point out, hey, you have 9 buffs, you're going crazy. Or like if you look at the details meter afterwards, obviously you can see like the big tails damage and all that. But all in all, it's not really that impressive. Just kind of passive damage is what it is. Now obviously all of these are tested on normal. We don't have Mythic Plus yet, so there's that. There's also no add-ons yet at the time. There's a couple that are working as of today. I didn't get those installed for the dungeon testing. Maybe I can get like a details meter or something. But all the numbers kind of don't really matter. It's just kind of how it feels, how it plays, how it looks. So I'm not really too concerned about that. But yeah, this is a nice wide open area. There's not a lot of casters. There are these little defend bubbles though, which kind of made it a little bit challenging. And the whole thing is, as you can see on the minimap here, there's a glowing indicator. So you have to go and kill a bunch of mini-bosses. And those mini-bosses then, I took some pictures again. So you can think of this similarly to if you've done Court of Stars. Court of Stars, the second boss, has those mini-bosses you need to summon, right? By alerting, like killing the guards, and then the mini-bosses go and check out the area. Very similar to that. So you have to kill all the mini-bosses, get some count, some percentage. So here's the boss that still has one of the generals. So, you know, you go pull some more stuff, get the general out of the way. Now, the one thing I do like is all of these indicators are actually added to the map in-game. So if you open your map, you'll actually be able to see all of the indicators for the mini-bosses, which is a really neat change. A dungeon later, the City of Threads, has the same technology. But again, it's just more of the same. It's your typical priests, mages. There's healers in these groups as well. But this felt really smooth. I really like this dungeon. In general, it wasn't too bad on melee. There's a couple of ground effects here, obviously, and like flame strikes and whatever. But most of it was interruptible. Iron Wire is going to be really good for these casters, obviously, grouping everything in. So in general, I didn't really mind it too much. Mini bosses seemed okay, wasn't too intrusive. And then as we go to this boss here, this is the first boss that's going to open the door for us. And it was okay, it just seemed like a typical kind of two boss fight. This kind of sucked, obviously, but it's a special ability that only happens, I think, at a certain health percentage. It was like maybe 40%, 50%. So you only have to deal with that once, and then this door opens, and you get to go into the Priory, into the church here. And all throughout here, I really didn't mind the design too much of Fatebound. I didn't play with Caustic here, because I had no nameplates, no weak auras, obviously. It's really hard to keep track of stuff. But in general, it didn't feel too bad. Pulling all of these was a bit rough. So maybe don't do that. But in general, if you could stand out of those consecrates, it was okay. They were just tossing shields and everything. It didn't feel melee unfriendly, it didn't feel re-stealth unfriendly. Like, you could definitely split these packs up, and they weren't, like, it's not like Brackenhide, where you, like, step 3 inches away and you instantly pull another pack. You definitely pick and choose what you're pulling, and the openness, especially of the courtyard, really allowed for some re-stealths, allowed for, you know, picking and choosing which packs you want to do. You could sap a couple mobs and double pull, which I think is really cool. I really like it when dungeons have the ability to kind of pull mobs together in certain ways that might be different for certain groups. This boss was also pretty cool. It's just hammers. You dodge the hammers, and it's all good. Has a big cast. It was pretty chill. All in all, not really much to say. I really, really enjoyed this. Obviously, with all of the class changes, we're going to look at those later. This is just kind of walking through. Now, this area sucked real bad. There's this undead mob in the middle of the room. I didn't really enjoy that because he pulses AoE damage. You can't sneak past, you can't... I think you might be able to sneak past. I don't know if it breaks stealth. But it does a ton of damage. And so you can't do a skip in this room. You kind of have to pull a lot of it. Simply because that skeleton in the middle is really messing things up. So we tried to go on the side here, on the right side. But that glowing skeleton right here in the middle, right here, like this guy over here, where I'm pointing with my cursor, he had a ginormous range on his damage ticking. You can actually see me taking ticking damage already as close as here. So there's no real way to get past it. You kind of have to pull him. You can see here, we're out of combat, and I'm taking ticking damage from this guy. It is a massive range. So, a little bit of a mini-boss, but he kind of fell over. He's named, but it really was nothing. Then we had this boss coming up here, Priorus. This last boss, I don't know how I feel about it. At a certain health percentage, I think it's like 50, the boss goes up. And we wiped to this. I think this is the first pull. We wiped to it. We all just popped cooldowns on pull. And then jumped up. She jumped up here with a shield. Spawns all these adds. But this ticking damage is crazy. And you definitely have to save cooldowns for this shield. At least with current tuning. Because that shield was huge. It was humongous. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It definitely felt very weird, and the ads were just kind of dying on the way in. Let me see if I can go back. Yeah, so you see these Arathis coming in on the sides, but they were just dying already just by walking in, and they just got cleaved down super quick. Later on, I think we just kind of ignore them again. So this time we have all of our cooldowns. Come on. Silly, 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 silly windows. Yeah, so I mean, I kind of AoE'd them, but they were, like, the ads seemed kind of a non-issue. We just saved cooldowns for the shield and called it a day. All in all, it's a very, very short dungeon. You just do the little runaround in the courtyard. You go in, you kill another boss, pull a couple packs, and you're good to go. But yeah, I kind of like the shorter design. And the courtyard, obviously, you could pull left or right. It depends on what the percentage is going to be tuned to in Mythic Plus, how much of that you need to pull. But I think the openness of it really lends itself to a lot of different pull structures that you can do. I didn't see a lot of big prio targets, though. All of the mobs were kind of a little bit evenly. There's obviously a lot of mini-bosses, but in terms of, like, caustic potential, where you have a big mob in a big group, like one big guy in a big group of mobs, that wasn't really there. It was a lot of evenly healthed mobs, or, like, at least semi-evenly healthed mobs. Like, you had, like, 2 warriors, 2 priests, and a mage, for example, in a pull. And the priests and the mages would have a little bit less health, but not by a ton. So it kind of depends. If all of the mini-bosses are really, really strong, then big single target opportunity. Maybe you pull mobs into the mini-bosses. There's the crash. Lovely. But yeah. Anyways, sneak peek fate-bound article, I guess, which might be out soon. But yeah, that was kind of the Priory. Let me know what you guys think. And I have a couple more of these to go. If you guys want to see the raw footage, I can just give the raw footage and trim out some stuff. I did bug splat a lot of times because it is alpha, so all of that. Anyways, have a good one. Bye.